Have you ever wondered what would happen if you dropped a billionaire real estate mogul with a huge ego straight into the ancient world? You clicked this video to find out who the ancient Donald Trump was. Prepare yourself, because history has a truly wild answer. Most people believe that modern politics is a brand new circus. We look at the television, the massive stadium rallies, and the nonstop yelling. We think this crazy level of anger and establishment panic could only happen today. But that is completely wrong. The exact playbook of using massive wealth, building gigantic walls, and making the political elites cry was actually perfected thousands of years ago. It turns out that whether you love a leader's disruptive energy or absolutely despise their tactics, this specific archetype is as old as time. In this video, we are going to unmask 3 incredible ancient figures who used the exact same strategies. We will look at a ruthless property mogul, an undisputed king of media spin, and a wealthy elite who turned into a populist wrecking ball. The only real difference is that these ancient guys could not post angry rants on the internet at 3 in the morning. But before we meet the man who put his name in giant gold letters, we have to start with Rome's richest citizen. What this guy did to buy his way into power makes modern political spending look like absolute pocket change. Imagine a man looking at the crowded, chaotic city of ancient Rome. Instead of seeing a mess, he sees the ultimate real estate opportunity. Enter Marcus Licinius Crassus. His net worth was so staggeringly huge that he invented his own definition of wealth. He famously said you are only truly rich if you can afford to buy and pay for your own private army. That is a massive flex. Crassus did not bother climbing the traditional political ladder. He simply bought the ladder. He also bought the building it was leaning against. He made his legendary fortune in property using tactics that were either brilliantly entrepreneurial or totally ruthless. It really depends on who you ask. Let us look at his first famous tactic. Ancient Rome was packed with poorly built wooden apartments. Fires happened every single day. So, Crassus created his own highly trained private fire brigade. But they were literally the worst first responders in history. When a building caught fire, his team would rush to the scene. But they refused to throw a single drop of water on the flames. First, Crassus would find the desperate property owner. He would offer to buy the burning building for absolute pennies. If the owner said no, Crassus just stood there with his arms crossed and watched it burn. Once the owner finally agreed to sell, his team put out the fire. That is the ultimate, cutthroat art of the deal. His second tactic was just as wild. Whenever buildings collapsed from bad construction, people would panic and sell. Crassus would buy all the surrounding land dirt cheap. Then, he used his own massive construction company to rebuild entire neighborhoods. He eventually owned a huge percentage of the entire Roman real estate market. To his loyal supporters, he was an absolute titan. They loved that he self-funded his own political campaigns. Because he used his own money, he could not be bought or controlled by the corrupt political elites. He did not need special interest donors. To his critics, he was a greedy bully. They accused him of exploiting working-class disasters to boost his own massive ego. But love him or hate him, the career politicians in the Senate were absolutely terrified of him. They were forced to kiss his ring because his massive wallet dictated the rules of the city. Crassus proved that extreme wealth is the ultimate political weapon. But for all his billions, he was missing one major thing. He completely lacked the giant ego and personal branding of a true political showman. This next leader totally changed the game of media manipulation. Wait until you hear how he spun a totally average military standoff into the greatest victory in human history, because it will forever change how you watch modern news. Long before cable news or social media, the absolute king of personal branding was Ramesses the Great of ancient Egypt. He understood a very powerful secret. The story you tell the public is way more important than actual reality. Today, we think putting your name in giant gold letters on a huge skyscraper is the ultimate billionaire flex. But Ramesses took self-promotion to a completely different level. He literally ordered his workers to scrape the names of previous kings off ancient monuments. Then, he replaced them with his own name. He commanded his builders to carve his hieroglyphs incredibly deep into the massive stones. He did this so no future leader could ever erase his brand or cancel him. He was completely obsessed with his public image. His statues always had to be the tallest in the room. His building projects had to be the most extravagant. And his achievements had to be described as absolutely perfect. Let us look at his most famous piece of media spin. Ramesses marched his massive army into the Battle of Kadesh. But things did not go exactly as planned. The whole fight ended in a massive, chaotic military tie. It was a total draw. But Ramesses refused to admit a stalemate. Instead, he rushed back home to Egypt and completely flooded the news zone. He invented the ancient version of state-sponsored fake news. He ordered epic, colorful murals to be painted on every major temple in the empire. These carvings claimed he single-handedly crushed the enemy. He told everyone it was the most tremendous, beautiful victory in all of human history. To his fiercely loyal fans, he was a larger-than-life savior. He projected absolute strength, secured the borders, and made the empire glorious again. To his critics, he was a massive egomaniac. They said he was totally obsessed with monument heights, crowd sizes, and shameless self-promotion. But Ramesses proved a terrifying point. If you completely dominate the media and repeat your own version of the facts loudly enough, your brand becomes the absolute truth. But Ramesses was still born into royalty. He was part of the elite system from day one. This next leader is even crazier. He was a wealthy insider who completely turned his back on his rich friends. Wait until you hear how he used loud, rowdy rallies to completely destroy the political swamp, because the elites are actually still crying about it today. Imagine being a rich, well-connected insider. You look at the political establishment and decide the whole thing is a corrupt swamp. Then, you decide to completely burn their system to the ground. That was Julius Caesar. He came from serious old money and high society. But he realized the ultimate cheat code to supreme power. It was not making boring, polite backroom deals with snooty politicians in the Senate. It was grabbing a megaphone and taking his message straight to the streets. Caesar started hosting massive, incredibly loud, open-air rallies. He totally bypassed the traditional political channels. Let us look at how he famously broke their rules. Rome had a Senate filled with career politicians who loved their ancient traditions. When Caesar gained power, he wanted to pass a law giving public land back to poor workers and army veterans. The wealthy Senate elites hated this. They tried to use every single legal trick and veto to block his policies. Did Caesar compromise? Not at all. He just laughed in their faces. He took his law directly to the People's Assembly. He brought thousands of loud, cheering supporters with him to intimidate the politicians. At one point, his main political rival tried to stop the vote. Caesar's massive crowds actually chased his rival out of the public square, and someone even dumped a bucket of manure right on the politician's head. Talk about literal political mudslinging. The establishment absolutely lost their minds. They had endless meltdowns over his behavior. To the everyday Romans, Caesar was an absolute hero. He was a fearless champion fighting a completely rigged system. He actually listened to the forgotten men and women of the Republic. To the political insiders, he was a terrifying, norm-shattering demagogue. He refused to play by their sacred rules. He openly mocked his enemies and threatened the very foundation of their ancient democracy. Caesar's ability to trigger a red-faced panic among the elites is legendary. At the same time, he packed the ancient equivalent of stadiums with die-hard, fiercely loyal fans. He proved that weaponizing a massive base against the establishment is a strategy as old as dirt. But here is the absolute craziest part about all of this ancient disruption. It explains exactly why this chaotic, highly polarized political cycle keeps repeating itself right up to the present day. The truth is, there is no single ancient Trump. The ultimate political disruptor is actually a historical cocktail. Take the massive bank account and cutthroat real estate instincts of Crassus. Add the giant golden branding and fake news machine of Ramesses. Then, mix in the rule-breaking, stadium-packing energy of Julius Caesar. You get the exact recipe that still terrifies elites today. You might look at this type of leader and see a heroic wrecking ball. You might think they are the only ones brave enough to smash a completely broken, corrupt swamp. Or, you might look at them and see a chaotic tornado of pure, terrifying ego. Either way, history proves this wild strategy absolutely works. People have always loved a showman. We always cheer for the guy promising to build the biggest walls and win the most tremendous victories. Honestly, the only thing these ancient titans lacked was a smartphone. Imagine Julius Caesar angrily posting on social media about his haters at 3 in the morning. The playbook of massive wealth, loud spin, and populist outrage never actually died. It just got a modern upgrade. So, looking back at all these billionaires, builders, and rule breakers, who do you think is the Donald Trump of the ancient world? Let us know in the comment section.